Hello everyone and welcome back to She Makes It Work. I'm Gabby and today we're going to talk about likability at work. How important is it and how can you get it? A lot of people often wonder, how far can you go based on likability? So we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to explain how important it is, how to know if you have it, and how to get it if you don't. In the corporate world, likability is very important at one specific point in your career. So let's set aside sales roles, because if you're primarily in a sales role, obviously likability is critical and incredibly important. If you're not in a sales role and you're trying to climb the corporate ladder as a corporate baddie, then likability becomes very important at the point where you're trying to move into management. So for your previous promotions where you were moving through the technical levels, those technical levels are obviously based on your technical and functional skills. But once you want to move into management, which could include, if you're on the technical path, an architecture role, because some architects are seen as somewhat leadership roles in companies, or if you're trying to move into traditional management, that first manager promotion is the one where likability plays the biggest role. Because at that point, your leadership wants to know that people are following your lead because they want to follow you. And that tends to be actually more based on likability than pretty much anything else. Obviously, you want people to have trust in your competence, but what happens is psychologically as humans, we tend to grant more trust and more credit to people we like. And that's why it's so helpful in sales, because it's not just that the clients like the salesperson, they also tend to grant a bit of a halo effect to people who are likable. So again, in the corporate roles and in the corporate world, when leaders are looking at, can you be an effective manager for your team? That's the most important thing, is that the team is going to follow your lead. Therefore, you're a good manager. So if you've demonstrated that people like you, and if leadership likes you, it's very easy for them to give you that promotion. That's not to say that if you're not likable, that's an impossible journey for you. That's not true. It's just a little bit harder. Think of likability as a leg up at that point. And again, your life is genuinely a lot easier if you're likable, because people do tend to, again, want to follow you or want to do what you want, and life in general is a little more easy for you if you are likable. But if you're trying to get into management and you're not the most likable person, there's hope. There is hope for you. So what you want to do at that point is, if you recognize that you're not super likable, you really want to build your network. So how do you know if you're not super likable? And that's actually a key question, because I think some people think they're likable when they're not, and some people think they're not likable when they are. So likability isn't a few people like me a lot. Likability is, in general, I'm easy to like. Most people like me. Most people resonate with me. It doesn't mean everyone has to. So if you have a few people who vehemently dislike you, you can still be considered likable, and you do need to manage those people and make sure that they don't become a problem for you. But it's quite different if you're not likable and only a few people actually like you. That means that even the people who do like you are a little bit hesitant to put you into a management role, because they recognize that you're an acquired taste, basically. So one of the best things you can do if you find yourself in that situation where a few people like you, but you're just not easy to like or generally liked, and again, there's nothing wrong with it, don't feel bad about it, it happens to the best of us, but if that's the situation, the thing that you should focus on is building your network, building your network of supporters, making sure that the people who do like you and who click with what it is that you bring to the table have an easy time supporting you. And having an easy time supporting you means that A, they have a lot of good stories they can tell about you, so their liking you is founded on your capabilities. You may need to show up a little bit stronger in terms of how you're delivering results to offset that lack of likability. That is also a thing. And then you need to lean into ways that you can be found to be more likable. And that might be starting some sort of internal coaching thing or mentoring. But if it's shown that you may not be easy to like, but you still have people who listen to you and that you can coach and mentor, then you're still seen as having those leadership skills, and that can offset the likability factor. Now, again, this is specific to when you're trying to get those first one or two manager type roles. This is that key moment where you need to hone your network and leverage them if, again, you're not super likable organically. Now, All of this changes after that manager level. That is where likability has diminishing returns in an organization. The reason for that is once you move up higher in the hierarchy, you have more financial responsibility and more financial influence. At the manager level, you're not actually making a lot of financial decisions. And while you may need to make hard decisions about your people, you don't need to make them in the same way that you do when you're responsible for the overall P&L of your team, which usually comes at the director or senior director role. So once you get into that land where you have more financial responsibility and financial oversight, likability can actually become a little bit of a detriment because leadership wants to know that you can make hard decisions, that you can make decisions that will ruffle feathers. And the further you go, leadership wants to make sure that you have an established point of view about things, which may not be a popular one, but that you can champion your point of view and that you're more focused on some of the results than you are on your own individual likability and popularity. So that's where the diminishing returns set in when it comes to likability, because people who've built their entire career based on likability, they're going to plateau at the manager or director level depending on the organization, because in some organizations, directors have more or less financial responsibility, so they're seen as more or less of that more senior leader role. In a lot of organizations, they don't, and they're just basically, higher titled managers, and it's okay that they're still likable. But I think you get my point, which is that if you want to continue growing, you have to get comfortable with the fact that you need to make decisions that may not make you popular, including maybe managing people out, putting people on PIPs, reducing workforce, some of the decisions that we don't like to have to make, but that are necessary when you've got the financial security of a business unit in your hands. And so that's where likability is just, again, less important and can be a detriment. I've definitely met managers who really couldn't get their heads around the responsibility that they had for people's careers and for the financial, their ability to influence the financial health of the company. Those people aren't going to get promoted again. That's just a reality. Unless they can get their heads around, I'm going to have to make decisions that make me less likable, they're not going to continue to progress. That's just the way it works in the real world. Now, there may be the occasional exception to this, but I don't want you to think that the exception makes the rule, because it doesn't. In this case, the exception is the exception. I have met somebody who is a senior director who is pretty likable. He had decent technical skills. He was in a technical role, but he was a senior director, and he didn't understand why he didn't have as much influence within the organization as he thought he should have as a senior director. And it's because leadership saw him as moving ahead because he was likable and not because he had the ability to make difficult or challenging decisions. So let that sink in for a second, which is that it's really important that you're cognizant of your likability factor and what you're willing to do to maintain it and what you can let go of and where you need to lean into that likability at different points in your career. So again, up to manager, absolutely lean on your likability if you haven't. Do things to supplement it if you don't have that organic likability, again, which means you're going to have to show up with, stronger results based on your technical and functional skills, as well as getting your network to support you and demonstrating ways where you are showing that leadership, even if you don't have that quality. But then once you get past manager or, again, director at certain companies, you need to show that you can have, again, a more challenging POV. You may be saying, Gabby, I've met CEOs, or I see them on YouTube and TikTok or wherever you see them, TED Talks, and they're likable. And I'm going to challenge that. I'm going to say they're actually not likable. They're charismatic, and that is a very different thing. Charisma is bringing in energy, but if you day-to-day work with those people, they are often less than likable because they have to make really hard decisions, and they're focused on a singular goal and on making unpopular decisions to achieve that singular goal. So they may be very charismatic, which is incredibly important at the C-suite level, but they're not actually that likable. I'm just going to say it. And as somebody who's struggled with how I feel about likability my whole career, where I've seen people get ahead of me because they were likable, and I am not that likable. I've had to be comfortable owning my lack of likability, and also realize that for the most part, I've then passed the people who were likable because I was able to lean into and challenge things that are actually more required of a senior leader. And so that can be a comfort to you if you also find yourself feeling like I'm maybe not the most likable likable people, but you have a strong point of view. You have really strong business management skills. You do have really strong leadership skills. You understand how organizations work. You're really focused on business strategy. Those are things that make you a really good senior leader. And you're just going to struggle at that one point, which is getting that first manager role. But after that, your promotions are going to come a lot easier to you because the focus shifts as you move up in the hierarchy. So I hope this was really helpful to everybody in terms of, hey, yes, likability is very important, but be very conscious of how you're leveraging it and when it's okay to step back from it and make a little bit of a shift in terms of your mindset. And also, it's not a career killer if you don't have it. It's no big deal. And yeah, I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions and if you want me to expand more on the topic or if this has raised other topics that you want to hear more about. And definitely please like, subscribe, and follow depending on what platform you're on, because it helps so much. And we really, really, really want to spread the word of She Makes It Work and make sure that this content is accessible to the people who need it. So thank you so much and have a great day.